They say when the axe comes down, you hear it whistle before it hits. That's a lie. When the axe came for me, it was silent, surgical. Just the soft clack of acrylic nails on a keyboard, the faint hum of the AC, and the taste of copper behind my teeth. My father always said you were intense, she said without looking up. You don't vibe with the team anymore. I stared across the desk at her. Melissa Rayburn, 35 if I had to guess. New CEO by inheritance, not merit. She was the daughter of the man who built this place with me, or beside me at least. My name's Tom Galen. I'm 56 years old. I was Senior Operations Director at Stonewell Logistics, 28 years. I was employee number 3. Back when the office was one room over a garage, with a coffee maker that sounded like a dying raccoon. Back when her father, Harold Rayburn, still believed in shaking hands and showing up early. Melissa finally looked up. Her expression was polished plastic, one of those carefully curated corporate masks. It's just, your energy is too intense. We need a more collaborative, adaptable vibe. I blinked. My energy. Yes, she said, tapping a few final keys. Your presence. It doesn't align with the current team culture. My jaw stayed locked. I'd handled freight crises in snowstorms, rebuilt routing protocols after a ransomware hit, and managed 3 warehouse expansions. But sitting there in that glass-walled office, being told I had the wrong vibe. I felt like I'd been cast in someone else's dream. She slid a folder toward me. Severance package, 2 months NDAS, final paycheck. She didn't flinch when I didn't touch it, just kept typing something else, an email maybe, while she fired me. I looked around her office. Neutral beige walls, fake succulents, some vague inspirational quote in a brushed metal frame. Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Harold would have laughed at that. Hell, he probably would have taken it down with a crowbar. I wanted to say 1,000 things. Remind her of the time I rerouted a fleet of trucks after a hurricane hit the Gulf, saving the company $500,000 in penalties. Of how I trained her first warehouse manager myself when she was still in college, too busy posting brunch selfies to care. Of how her father trusted me with the company ledger before he trusted his own lawyers. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I shut my laptop, slowly, deliberately. The sound echoed in the too silent room. Then I stood, tipped my hat, and said, "Good luck, Miss Rayburn." Her fingers paused mid-keystroke, just for a second. That was all I got. I walked out. The open-plan floor was quiet, unusually so. A few heads lifted. Some people looked away fast. Others held my eyes for a heartbeat. Enough to say, I heard. I'm sorry. I'm not brave enough to say it out loud. I nodded once, to no one in particular, and kept walking. Past the break room I helped renovate. Past the whiteboard I'd filled 100 times with shipping metrics and pivot plans. Past the intern whose father I once helped get a job when he was laid off in 2009. Outside, the sun was too bright. I stood in the parking lot for a long while, holding the folder now, though I didn't look inside. The building looked smaller than it used to, less impressive. It was a trick of the light, maybe. Or maybe it had only looked big because I'd spent half my life building it. I remembered when we first moved into this building, back when Harold was alive, back when we still rolled up our sleeves and figured things out over coffee and busted pallets. The sign over the door had been hand-painted then. Now it was some sleek, backlit monstrosity that cost 10 grand and said nothing. My truck door groaned when I opened it, familiar and honest. I sat behind the wheel, not ready to drive. I didn't feel relieved or angry or even betrayed yet, just hollow, like someone had scooped out everything that mattered and left the shell. All that time, all those years. Not one missed deadline, not one quarter behind, not one HR complaint, performance review, or write-up. I gave them everything I had. More than I had, sometimes. Lost sleep, lost birthdays. I missed my own wedding rehearsal because a shipment was stuck at a border crossing, and Harold called me in a panic. Now, I wasn't even worth a face-to-face from the board. Just a half-hearted memo, and Melissa's neatly practiced goodbye. You don't vibe with the team. I started the engine, not because I was ready to go, but because I needed to drown out her voice in my head. And as I pulled out of the lot, I didn't look back. Not really. But I caught a glimpse in the rearview mirror. The office, the name I helped build, the walls I'd spent decades inside. It didn't look like mine anymore. It looked like a stranger. I still wake up at 5:30 every morning. Not because I want to, just because that's how I'm wired after 28 years of getting ahead of the chaos. Alarms off, house silent. I sit on the edge of the bed like I'm waiting for a train that's been canceled. The first few days, I kept my morning routine. Shave, black coffee, button-down shirt. I'd sit at the kitchen table with my laptop open, half expecting someone from Stonewell to call and say there'd been a mistake, that Melissa had overstepped, that I was needed. No one called. By the fourth day, I stopped shaving. Didn't see the point. I made coffee, but let it sit until it went cold. I didn't even notice I'd stopped drinking it. I applied for jobs, or I tried to. The online applications felt like riddles, buzzwords everywhere: agile thinker, culture forward, dynamic synergy specialist. Half of it looked like it came out of a parody sketch. I tried tailoring my resume. I tried simplifying it, expanding it, shrinking it again. No callbacks, not even an email. They say you can feel when the world's moved on without you. That's wrong. You don't feel it. You realize it. Like waking up to find all the street signs in a foreign language and no one stopping to translate. Most of the guys I was close with at work retired years ago or moved away. The rest I only saw in boardrooms and logistics calls. You spend so long buried in spreadsheets and freight invoices that you forget to build anything outside of that. The only person I might have called was Jack, my old colleague from the early days. But he passed 3 years ago. Heart attack at 61. His wife sent me a thank you note for speaking at the memorial. That was the last time I really felt useful. My phone's been quiet, a few polite texts. So sorry to hear. You'll bounce back. That kind of thing. Short, cheerful. From people who don't mean harm, just don't know what to say when a man loses the only thing he's ever built. At night, I drink a little more than I should, just enough to feel the edge go dull. I sit by the window sometimes and watch the traffic pass below. The apartment's on the 3rd floor. Nothing fancy, but it's clean. Quiet. Too quiet. I talk to my father sometimes, just out loud, like he's sitting across from me. I picture him in his denim work shirt, arms folded, that permanent crease between his eyebrows. You always told me to earn my place, I say. What do you do when you thought you earned it and still got kicked out the door? No answer, of course. He was a welder, 40 years at the same plant before they shut it down. Never once late. Never took a sick day unless he had no choice. I remember him telling me once, "Don't expect a thank you. The job is the thank you." That stuck with me. Still does. But I can't help wondering now, was I the problem? There were moments, little things. A meeting last year when the new marketing lead, some kid named Devin, pitched an idea I flat out said wouldn't work. I didn't yell. I didn't insult him. I just laid out the flaws. Efficient, honest. He never spoke up in a meeting again after that. Another time, a team-building event, trivia night at a bar. I didn't go. Told them I had better things to do. It was true. I had reports to finish. But maybe that's when they started saying I didn't vibe. Did I miss something? Was I so focused on doing the job that I forgot how to be part of the damn team? I don't know anymore. Last night, I pulled up the Stonewell website, clicked around, half out of habit. The Our Team page is different now, sleeker, younger. Melissa's photo is front and center, all bright teeth and buzzwords. A few folks I trained are still there, but no mention of me. The projects section, full of things I led, distribution centers I designed, shipping protocols I built from the ground up, still there, still in use, but no trace of who created them. I sat there for a long time, staring at the screen, and for the first time since I walked out of that building, I felt something sharper than sadness. I felt erased, like I'd never existed in that place, like 28 years could be deleted with a few clicks and no one would notice. No name, no mention, no memory, just dead air. I was sitting in a corner booth at Brewer's Cafe, halfway through a muffin I didn't want and a coffee that had gone cold, when I heard my name. Tom? Tom Galen? I looked up, slow to register the face. Tall kid. Man now, really. Slim, sharp-eyed, hair longer than I remembered. Then it clicked. Max Devlin. Intern, summer of '09. I taught him how to manage carrier disputes and not panic during inventory audits. He once spilled an energy drink on my binder and nearly cried. Max, I said, standing up. Look at you. Didn't expect to see you outside a spreadsheet. He laughed. It's been a minute. What are you doing here? Just grabbing some coffee. I didn't add that this was the third day in a row I'd parked myself here like it was still my office. He sat down uninvited, but I didn't mind. I figured you were still at Stonewell. You still running ops? I hesitated. Not anymore. He blinked. What? You left? Was told I didn't... Vibe. I forced a smile. It landed sideways. Max stared at me like I'd told him the sun had stopped rising. You're kidding. You built half that company. I shrugged. Doesn't count for much these days. Culture fit and all that. He sat back. Unreal. That's insane. Not really, I said. Just how it goes. We talked a bit more. What he was up to now. How his little startup had turned into a real operation with clients, staff, and overhead. Logistics consulting, mostly software-driven, based out of a co-working space near the river. We're growing too fast, he admitted. Honestly, we're in over our heads. You ever think about consulting? I raised an eyebrow. Me? Yeah, just a few hours a week. Advice, guidance. You've forgotten more than we know. I looked down at my hands, rubbed a knuckle. I don't know. I'm not exactly up on your tech stack. I don't even know what half your job titles mean. Doesn't matter, he said. You know how to solve problems. We need that. I didn't say no outright, just said I'd think about it. Later that night, I found myself driving. No destination, just roads I knew by heart. My truck, old as it was, felt more honest than anything else in my life. The hum of the engine, the low growl of tires on asphalt. It was something I could rely on. I ended up back in the business park. Stonewell's office was dark, save for a few lights in the lobby, probably the night cleaning crew. The sign still glowed, bold and bright, like it had anything to say. I parked down the street. Couldn't bring myself to pull in. I sat there, engine off, windows down. My father's voice came back to me then. One of his favorites. If the world spits you out, build your own table. He used to say that when the union guys got screwed or the plant changed shifts without warning, he never waited for things to get fair. He just worked, built, and made his place too solid to be ignored. I looked at the building again, but it didn't feel like a place I belonged to anymore. It didn't even look like mine. That night, I barely slept. Not out of restlessness, more like clarity. I'd spent weeks waiting for the world to offer me a seat back at the table. Maybe it never would, but maybe I didn't need it to. The next morning, I called Max. "Let's give it a try," I said. "A couple hours a week." He didn't even hide the excitement. "You won't regret it." When I walked into their office, I almost turned around. Neon lights, open floor plans, whiteboards filled with multicolored scribbles, music playing from a speaker in the corner, people in hoodies and sneakers and standing desks. A girl with pink hair offered me a La Croix. "Just water's fine," I muttered, feeling about 100 years old. Max greeted me like I was royalty. "Guys, this is Tom Galen. He's the reason I survived my first real job." They stared, politely, curiously. I felt like a relic. Then someone asked a question. Real logistics issue. Overcommitted carrier, delayed shipments, customer complaints piling up. I started talking. Gently, at first, then firmer, clearer. And they listened. They took notes, nodded, asked follow-ups. It wasn't about the tech. It was about pressure points, communication timing, how to get ahead of a delay before it snowballed. When I finished, Max clapped a hand on my shoulder. "See?" he said to the room. "Told you." I stood there, a little dazed, but I felt it. Something I hadn't in weeks. The pulse. Still there. Still mine. The first call came from a name I hadn't seen in years. Lauren Mathis, regional director at Eastern Freight. We worked together through 2 recessions and 1 port strike. She didn't bother with pleasantries. "Tom, what the hell happened?" I paused. "To what?" "To you. I sent 3 emails to Stonewell last week. No answers. None of them know how to handle what we built together. I asked for you by name. They said you were gone." I took a breath. I was let go. A silence stretched. Then she said, low and sharp, "That was their first mistake." 2 days later, I got a message from a vendor I'd worked with out of Minneapolis, then a manufacturer out of Reno, then a warehouse lead from Texas I hadn't heard from since 2015. Word was spreading, not about me directly, but about the little startup I'd joined and how it was punching far above its weight. Clients were curious. Numbers were climbing. And Stonewell? Well, Stonewell was slipping. Max started bringing me in on more calls, bigger strategy sessions. The kids at the startup stopped seeing me as a guest and started treating me like gravity. Quiet, steady, grounding. I never raised my voice. I never had to. Then, a call from a blocked number. I almost let it ring out, but something in me answered anyway. "Tom," said a familiar voice, gruff with age and wear. "It's Russell, from the board." Russell Yates, old school logistics guy turned executive. We came up together in the late 90s. He was 2 doors down when we set up our first in-house tracking system. He always respected structure, history, men who showed up. "I wasn't told why you left," he said. "Melissa said it was mutual. Now we're hemorrhaging talent, missing deadlines, and 3 major clients have flagged their contracts." "That's unfortunate," I said, and meant it. "But I'm not coming back, Russ. I'm not asking you to. Just come in. Talk to us. We need context." I said nothing. "It's not about fixing things," he added. "It's about truth. The board deserves to hear yours." The next day I put on a suit. Not because I had to, but because if I was going to walk into that building again, I'd do it on my own terms. No apologies. No shame. Walking through Stonewell's front doors was like stepping into a preserved version of my old life. Same reception desk, same gray-blue carpeting, but the energy was different. Stiff, nervous, like everyone was waiting for a storm that had already arrived. A young assistant led me up to the boardroom. On the way, I passed faces I didn't recognize. A few that I did, now older and tighter around the eyes. The boardroom hadn't changed. I helped pick the oak for that table, insisted on natural light for better morale. Now it felt like a stage. Melissa sat at the end, tablet in hand, mouth tight. Russell gave me a nod from across the table. A few other board members were already whispering among themselves. "Thanks for coming, Tom," Russell said aloud. "You were with Stonewell from the beginning. We wanted to hear directly from you about your departure." I looked around the room. "You weren't told?" Russell shook his head. "Just that it was a mutual decision." I turned to Melissa. "Should I tell them, or would you like to?" She didn't answer, so I did. I was let go because, quote, "my energy was too intense, and I didn't vibe with the team." After 28 years, murmurs rippled down the table. Melissa finally looked up. "You were undermining collaboration. You dismissed new approaches." "I dismissed bad ones," I said calmly. "And I always explained why." A younger board member spoke. "We've seen morale drop sharply since your exit, and several projects have been delayed by over a quarter." Melissa's jaw clenched. "He's been interfering, poaching talent, sabotaging us." I let the room fall silent. "I've done nothing of the sort," I said. "I'm working with a different company now. They asked for help. I gave it." She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand, gently but firmly. "I didn't cause your storm, Melissa," I said. "You fired your compass. The storm did the rest." Russell exhaled, slowly. One of the older women on the board whispered something to her neighbor. "I didn't come here to gloat," I said, standing. "I came for closure. You deserved the truth. So did I." I left the folder I'd brought, printouts of timelines, project notes, old performance reviews, just in case anyone wanted to fact-check history. As I walked out, no one stopped me, not even Melissa. That was the difference now. I didn't need their building. I had my own direction. The startup offered me a full-time role last week, senior advisor, generous equity, title, perks. Max was all smiles, full of hope, said I was the backbone behind their best quarter yet. I thanked him, meant it too, but told him no. I'd helped build someone else's table once, and when the music changed, they pulled the chair out from under me. I wasn't bitter. I was just done handing over my compass. So I bought a small office instead. Not much, just a second-floor unit above a bakery that smells like cinnamon by 7 a.m. 2 rooms, a coffee maker, and my name on the door, Thomas Galen Consulting. No logo, no slogans, just the truth. The paint is fresh. The desk is old, mine from the Stonewell days, hauled out of storage. I had it refinished, kept the scratches on the side panel. History matters. The first week I worked alone. Max referred a few clients, and one of my old warehouse contacts passed my name around. Pretty soon I had emails piling up from folks who didn't care how old I was, or whether I knew Slack shortcuts. They just needed someone who knew how to fix problems. Then something funny happened. 2 old colleagues reached out, quietly. Karen from Logistics and Reggie from Fleet. Both had left Stonewell since I was fired. No announcements, no drama. Just slipped away. I invited them in for coffee. We talked, caught up, and by the end of it, I said, "Want to stick around?" They said yes. Now we're 3 people, small, sharp, honest. We don't have a ping-pong table. We don't have kombucha on tap, but we've got calendars full of work and a whiteboard covered in real solutions. This morning, I walked in early, before the bakery opened, before the street had much life. I unlocked the door, turned on the light, and took in the space. A sliver of sun was hitting the far wall, warming the wooden floor just enough to make me stop and feel it. I stood there with a coffee in hand, black, too strong, just how I like it, and thought about all the mornings that used to start in silence, in shame, wondering where I'd gone wrong. Now, it's different. Karen came in first, balancing 2 folders and a muffin. "Client at 10, she said. "Reggie's finalizing the route plan. I told them we'd walk them through the recommendations." "Good," I said. "Thanks, Karen." She smiled like she meant it. Around 9, a new intern showed up. Jalen, early 20s, sharp kid, just started last week. Nervous but eager. He'd been watching me, I could tell, studying how I handled calls, how I paced a conversation. "Mr. Galen," he said, following me into the meeting room. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you leave your last job?" I paused at the window, looking out across the street at the diner where I used to sit with a newspaper and nothing else to do, but wait for the day to end. "I didn't leave," I said. "I was released." He looked puzzled. "Sometimes," I said, "you get pushed out so you can see just how far you weren't meant to stay." He nodded slowly, like he was filing it away for later. After the client meeting, successful, efficient, even a handshake at the end, I stayed behind. The others filtered out, heading to lunch. I walked over to the far wall and hung the last piece I hadn't placed yet. It's a small wooden frame. Inside it, a piece of weathered paper with a line my father used to say, scrawled in my own handwriting: "Build your own table." I hung it straight. No ceremony. Then I sat at my desk, pulled open a drawer, and took out a plain notebook. Leather-bound. A gift from Reggie. First week we opened. I hadn't touched it until now. I opened to the first page. Date at the top. Then, slowly, the words came. Day 42. Client happy. Team solid. No wasted motion. I'm still here. I let the pen rest in my hand for a while after that. There was a time when I thought losing my job meant losing myself. That everything I'd built could be wiped out with a short meeting and a severance folder. But what I didn't know back then, what I couldn't know, is that the only thing they took was the building. The work, the ethic, the instincts. Those were mine. Always had been. And now, for the first time in a long time, I'm not waiting for someone to tell me what seat I'm allowed to have. I built my own table, and it's just getting started.